Welcome to the Summit Register. We're here with Brad Lupien, CEO and president of ARC.
Yeah.
And a beautiful day in Mission Gorge. Get to do some climbing.
Pretty
Life
amazing.
is good.
Pretty amazing.
Welcome.
Like you say, nice office.
It's not a bad office. Yeah, the office supplies are terrible. The snacks aren't that great. Welcome. Well, we'll dive right in. Brad, what are your core values?
Yeah, great question, and I think that it's a harder question than just nailing them because they change and shift over time. But I would say at this point in my professional career and personal life, and they've been there all the time, but what I'm really focused on and continue to think about is kindness and joy, curiosity, and then humility is always in there. And the big one that shows up more today than it has in years past is hope, remaining hopeful.
Great. How do you use kindness and joy as a CEO?
Yeah. Once it stops being fun, I don't want to do it anymore. And it took me a long time to get to the point that not to do it just to get bigger, not to do it just to do more, but to do it because of the true why or the true spirit of it, which should be joyful, should be fun, and the workplace should be joyful. It's not always going to be. You have to work hard, but you should find something you love to do and do it, and that's what I've found, and I'm very grateful that I found that.
If you do it right, kind of like this 5-7, there's joy in the suffering.
Yeah, I agree. There's a piece to it, and also it makes you recognize the joy when you're going through the hard things.
Right.
Only through some of the suffering can you recognize how good other things are.
Absolutely. So what's your philosophy or approach to leading people?
Again, I wish there was one. And if you find somebody that's got the one that works every time, I'd like to meet them and learn from them.
Me too.
That's the humility is, I don't know. I don't have one that works all the time. But one that I try and keep front and center is to lead from the heart. To recognize that it's about people and it's about relationships, and I need to start with who the person is, and then from there I can work with them, coach them, mentor them, or not, to be a better professional or be a better business person or be a better anything. But I have to start with who are they, and how that shows up and what that looks like, especially during this pandemic, but always is to say, like, you seem like you're in a really bad place. Tell me what happened before breakfast today that we're like, it's contentious right now. Tell me what else is happening. And if it's the work thing that's making this contentious, let's talk about that. But I really do believe you need to lead from the heart.
It's a great question to figure out what's going on. They might have a 2-year-old. It's possible.
Yeah, and they might have a 2-year-old. There's maybe a lot going on. And I think if we start with why didn't you meet this deadline, you're not starting in the right place.
Great advice for our watchers, listeners. So I'm super excited because your company is outdoor adventure, outdoor experiences, and learning. So you do a lot of this stuff. What have you learned personally and professionally from time outside?
Yeah, so we have the whole after school side of things, and then we have an adventure side of the organization that does outdoor ed primarily for underserved urban youth. So it's less about the skill of rock climbing, and it's more about the experience of going to do it. And I would say that experience for our clients is actually what I've learned, is based on what I've learned or driven, is there is something to be said about whether it's backpacking or rock climbing or paddling a canoe, that you realize really quickly less is more. And to be really efficient, you have to get rid of a lot of the extra stuff and push that to the side. When we went out backpacking a few weeks back with the team, you really realize quickly while backpacking that think carefully about what you need and what you don't need.
Yeah.
Take what you need, replace what you don't, or get rid of what you don't need. And if it is not easy to be simple, but you need to strive to make it as simple as possible. Find the core piece of what you're trying to do and get rid of everything else. And I learned that through backpacking. I learned that through climbing and being in the outdoors.
Yeah.
The other piece, I would say, the second piece would be just, I don't actually believe in multitasking. I think you can, for me, and other people may be different for, but for me, I need to do one thing well, even if it's just for a couple of seconds, and then I can move on to something else. And I think something like climbing, like don't start thinking about the 3 moves ahead. Think about what I'm doing in that moment, and really think about it and focus on it.
So you heard it here. Don't multitask, multi-pitch.
Yes, I like it. I like it.
People ask us often, aren't you going to get sick of taking people outdoors? And yeah, maybe teaching the skills, but you hit on something that to us is super important as well, that light that lights up inside of people when they come out for the first time, that experience. What's it like to facilitate that for especially underprivileged youth?
Maybe I'll share a story for that one.
Love it.
Back in Boston, teaching at the time before the company started, but I taught at a school for kids with behavior and emotional challenges. If they'd been kicked out of every other public school, they ended at this particular school, and I was a social worker there. And I started to take the kids out on canoeing trips and climbing excursions and hiking in the afternoons. No formal, no permits, none of that. Just put them in the school van and went out and did it. And it was mostly because I didn't want them shooting at each other on Friday afternoons. I'd rather take them out. And at one point I had this young man, and he was climbing, and I had him, 30 feet off the deck, and he turned down and he said, "Hey, mister, can I talk to you about the gang?" And I said, "What is it? Like, why now? I've wanted to do this in the office. I've tried on the basketball court. I've tried everywhere, and I couldn't get it." And it happened there. And that clicked for me. And the light turned on for that young man, and it had nothing to do with a rock climbing skill. It had everything to do with, this was an experience that triggered something else. Climbing involves fear. If you don't have it, I think it's dangerous to not have a little bit of fear. But understanding your own fear is important. So I'm really about the life and the social and emotional lessons that are inherent in adventure sports, as much as I am the idea of going to do the sport or the environmental side of it.
I love that story. I can see the formation of your company through that experience. So the big question, what's a piece of advice you'd give any leader anywhere who wants to be more excellent?
Well, one, I'm still learning how to do this as a leader. I've got a long way to go as a leader, so I'm hesitant to ever give anybody else advice. So I guess my first piece of advice is find your own path. And then the second thing that probably is a little bit of an umbrella for a couple other smaller pieces is ego really has no place in leadership. I learned early, and will continue to strive to hire people way smarter than me and way better than me at doing my own job. And it's hard. It's hard to say, wow, like, I'm threatened by this person. I want the person I'm threatened by.
It's hard to find people who are smarter than you.
No, it's very easy to find people smarter than me. It's hard to put the ego away and say, yes, I'm a little bit intimidated or threatened by this person, but I want to build my team up by having people really smart and really good around me. And the other piece of that ego is, it's about the people. It's kind of where we started, and maybe, I'll bring it full circle. It's about the people. Give credit where credit's due. And build people up, even if it means you don't get the credit. Giving somebody that you're working with the credit, spending the time to teach them how to do it versus managing them, and task delegation is not leadership. Leadership is taking the extra time to teach them how to do it, and to mentor and to coach, not just task manage.
For a man with no advice, that's pretty good advice. So
follow your own path. It works for me. If it works for somebody else, great.
Great. Well, Brad, thanks for coming out. Thanks for climbing with us. We got a couple more routes.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing your wisdom with our viewers and listeners.
Thank you, Knight. This is awesome. Thanks for bringing me out. Thanks for what you're doing. I mean, this is so important, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.